All right, there we go. We're all working now. Yeah, it's the jacket. All Saints. So yeah, I thought when I'm doing my chatting, I can wear a nice leather jacket. How about that? Right. So, good morning, Sean. How are you doing? Good morning, Kevin. Zed. Hello. And Graham. Good. Looking good. Thank you. You're all too generous. Although I've got this mad quiff thing going on, haven't I? No, it's got a weird kind. No. Right, that's gonna have to do. Right. Actually, I'm toying with the idea of using a lapel mic. So I got a hold of this. So I might use that at some point. I was testing it out yesterday, but the thing is, with lapel mics, you don't have to use like a ton of EQ on them to get them sounding good, because they pick up the room and everything. They're a nightmare. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it would be pretty good, wouldn't it? If John Carpenter was involved, that would be amazing. Just getting rid of that little corner bit. Right, so sorry I'm late, everybody. I woke up this morning. It sounds like a song, doesn't it? I woke up this morning, and the first thing that was a bit weird was so I have two monitors, and the way I mouse to them was switched the other way. So that was the first thing. And I was the last person on the computer. I mean, it's only ever me that's on it. So that was the weirdest thing. And then I opened Ecamm, and then I couldn't see any Ecamm, although it said it was open. I opened Ableton, and that just crashed straight away. So I was like, oh my God, and I've got like a minute to, be on here, and I still haven't made my coffee. So I had to sort those technical issues, but Ecamm was just acting weird. I'd lost my whole profile, all my scenes, everything. Couldn't find them, and I couldn't see it to get set up. So I was like, oh God, I was like freaking out. But I'm cool, because the main thing is quite excited about what we're talking about today, because it's it's one of the things that has massively helped me out. Gremlins, it could be Gremlins. Right, 2 seconds. Just want to check everything on the mics. Cool. Right, so what we're talking about today is we're talking about flow. So I thought the best way to talk about flow, because for me, right, I had no idea what it was. Actually, my boss at work used to go on about it, but she didn't really know what it was. She just thought it was a good thing to go about saying, like, oh yeah, we do lots of flow here. But basically, when I got coached, I did this coaching course, and it went on for about 6 months, maybe a year. It was 6 months, definitely. And we're writing an album, but actually in the process of writing that album, it was all about getting into flow. So this will have been probably back in 2015, 2016 that I was really sort of getting into this. I think it'd be more in the end of 2015. And I remember trying to get my head around understanding what it was that I experienced when I was in flow. And I did talk about this on another one of my streams, all right? So one of the things I experienced, right, just as the overview that really got me personally sort of really addicted into this, is obviously I talk a lot about the editor and the self 2, or self 1 and self 2, which would be in line with how Inner Gamer Music talks about this. So self 1 is the editor. It's the voice a lot of the time that we don't need in the studio telling us to do stuff. All right. And the problem with that is if we experience it in a performance situation, it's information that we're getting which usually isn't that relevant, that comes late, that makes us, if we get on board with those thoughts and feelings, it's when we start making mistakes or not coming up with very, very good ideas. So before I knew about flow, where self 1 was concerned, I actually used to just think that was me. I thought that's what it was. That was like these thoughts happen, and that was part of who I am and not a thing that I could detach. Till I became aware of it, And I think, what was the exercise we did? We're just told to say where in your brain do your ideas come from? Point where it is. Mine was over here somewhere, and I think most people were. But then it was explained that it was given a name. We gave it a name as well, and it was called the homuncular self, which I think is some sort of cartoon hero. So the editor was given a name. I just call it the editor now. And I thought, this is really strange. What's all of this about? Why am I giving this thing a name? And the reason it actually gave it a name is because I could then disassociate it with myself, because what was evident is that voice wasn't me. How could that voice be me if I can hear that voice almost like another person? So it was like these just random thoughts that were coming into my head that wasn't actually part of me. But who was I? Well, me was the person listening to that voice. And at that point, I thought, oh, that's amazing. So to experience who I am actually in the moment is when I'm in flow. So I hope you're following. Do say in the chat if you're following along with this crazy thing that I'm talking about. Okay? So remember, this is my personal sort of overview of what I experienced. So music became very, very addictive and even more therapeutic for me. Okay, because when you're in flow, there's no past and there's no future, which serves us very well when we're making music, doesn't it? So I'm not thinking about when such and such happened in the past, I absolutely messed up and couldn't, when these events happened and I played at this venue or whatever, or when I was on this stream and I played guitar, I played really bad because of these events, right? That's like past information, okay? That's predicting the future, which means we're not in the now. And we're thinking about those things because it's our editor trying to protect us from a situation. It kind of alerts us. And we don't want that, because doing music's a perfectly safe thing. Nothing bad's going to happen. So we need to stay focused. So the thing that's really therapeutic and really relaxes me as much as sleep is being in flow. It's the next thing, I wake up, I come on, I do my stream, I do my music session, and I'm in flow because it gives me a break from the past, okay? And I don't have to worry about the future at all. Everything is in the now. And I think for me, this is why, people are like, oh, music's my therapy. And if I had to put my finger on it, because music can be quite stressful as well, especially if it's not going very well. It's when you're in that state of flow. So I'm addicted to that. So I want to do things where I'm always in flow. That's where I've ended up with it. And after that moment, I just couldn't wait to get in the studio and get into flow. But how do we do that? So the next phase of this was understanding the triggers of flow. So I have here two psychologists. One is called Stephen Kotler. So Stephen Kotler wrote a wonderful book, and it's a great read, and it's fun as well, believe it or not, called The Rise of Superman. And it's just like a fun study of extreme sports athletes, because apparently out of all of us human beings, extreme sports athletes have flow dialed in the most. Okay, they're the guys that are doing it. When you think about it, right, when you're jumping out of an aeroplane for Red Bull, or doing that, like, jumping off that balloon in space, right? You don't want to be thinking about anything other than what you're doing. So you don't want any past and you don't want any future. You just need to be sort of absolutely focused in the moment. You don't want to jump off out of the balloon and think, oh, did I lock the front door when I left the house? Or, like, did I turn the oven off? Or did I leave a tap running? Right? You don't want to be thinking about that. You want to be in the moment. So why don't we have a bit of that in our music? You see, so extreme sports athletes have got a lot to offer us in terms of flow. So this is where it exists, right? Like, they've got it the most, right? So we have, like, according to Stephen Kotler, there are four trigger areas, okay? One is environmental, one is social, one is creative. Oh, sorry, three. Oh, sorry, no, it's four. So there's one that's psychological, one that's environmental, one social, and the last one is creative triggers, okay? And we can use some of these to, like, get us into flow, all right? So, the things that a lot of these are to do with what we experience, okay, as well as, I suppose, how to get into flow. All right. So I'll just read through them. So the psychological triggers are intensely focused attention, concentrating solely on the task at hand. This is very important, isn't it? Because what we don't want to do is multitask. So I don't believe in multitasking at all. All right. It just means that you're doing 2 or 3 things badly. So just focusing on doing one thing and being masterful at it. All right. That's one thing that I've learned. So I don't like to multitask when I'm in my music sessions. I don't like to be doing other jobs, having a conversation, or, going between different projects. I just like to focus in on the one thing that I'm doing. Clear goals, really important. So when going into a music session, we're going to apply this to guitar as well, like either you practice or doing a performance, which is a lot easier when it's a performance because it's like playing through your set, isn't it, or what have you. But having clear goals, so knowing what you are doing and why. So the music machine's great for this, isn't it? We're covered here because if you're splurging, aren't you? And if you're doing a discovery session, you're discovering and you know what to do, how you're going to operate within those. The same with draft. So already, as a header, you have some sort of guidance there. If you make the decision to splurge, then you're just going to make some music unedited. But actually, having clear goals, this is why, so anybody who I'm coaching here, having clear goals, this is why I'm always going on about having those concrete binary actions written down. So when you're doing a session and it's a discovery session, you're putting actions down that are hard to vary, especially when you're mixing. That's really, like, when you're mixing a track, when we're in release and it's down to that mixing bit, yeah, it can be stressful, right? Because you're connecting to the outside world and there's that fear of judgment. But actually, the jobs that you get right at the end are potentially a lot easier and much more measurable. It's like turning things up and down, or adding a distortion here, or adding a bit of reverb there. And you can measure these things, and you can measure them in time as well. So having clear goals, in a discovery session, a clear goal of creating 2 variations for a chorus, or coming up with 3 different variations for a melody. Or writing another section based on an emotion, on a contrasting emotion. So we can have clear goals for our sessions, and because we're clear, and because we're not just opening the computer and going, I'm going to do something, okay? We already know what we're doing, and that doesn't mean that it's going to limit our creativity. It's not. You know, having these concrete actions may seem like a limitation, but guess where creativity lives? In limitations. And that's why when you have these very sort of like strict jobs to do, right, that are clearly measurable, it gets you into flow, you become relaxed, and then insight happens. And this is why I always say, okay, the lists of actions that you're going to do in your session are hard to vary. They are, you know, very, very clear, okay? It's not going to stop creativity, because what we're also allowing is for any creative thoughts that happen, do those as well. Just the one rule with that is if something doesn't work, don't worry about it, move on. Because ideas are in abundance. We just have to get there. And as the Greek gods of the muse, we just have to sit down and do the work. So why not just start with a list, a job, okay, that you can measure. An immediate feedback, understanding how well you're doing in real time. Okay, so that's another thing, being able to monitor our progress, so being able to hear our music come together. Music's great for this, isn't it? Because it's completely cause and effect. I mean, when you're playing a guitar, you can hear something over your practice session improving. And this is a really important one. Skill and challenge ratio, right? So the skill and challenge ratio, this is quite a big one. Okay, the only thing about it, right, is I know that it was Chicks and Me how did say that, because that's both psychologists have a similar thing. The skill to challenge ratio, what you want to do, right, is if it's too hard, you'll disconnect. Okay, so for me, I decided to go back to some of the Tom Quayle stuff a few weeks ago, and I started doing the exercise, and actually fundamentally, right, it was a bit of a slap in the face, because what I was wanting to do is that I was wanting to improve my timing on the guard. And honestly, it totally straightens you out, his stuff. And I must admit, you know, I did the first few exercises quite easily, but as I was going on, because it was all dividing time feel, it was becoming very, very difficult. And I just looked at all the exercises I had to get through, and I was really wanting to do them all. And I just felt completely overwhelmed. And because my ego kicked in, and I wanted to be able to do, because I just expected to fly through it all in one session, right? And like when I was stuck after about 4, I was like, I took a bit of a knock, really. So I disconnected. So I stuck with 2 exercises, didn't do any more that I could do that were in my skill challenge ratio, but I didn't bother building up because I had the thought that I had to do all of them, which you don't. So that put me off, so I didn't go back to it, but I'm going to go back to it. So the skill to challenge ratio is important. If you don't, if you forget about it like I did there and just decide impulsively I'm going to do this, and then it's too hard, then that's not going to do you any good. It's going to switch you off from the task. And if it's too easy, then you're going to get bored, aren't you? So a good skill to challenge ratio for me actually is, you know, my latest problem on guitars, like how do I get harmonically more interesting? So I was thinking about melodic minor modes. That would be okay because I do know them. So that would be within the skill challenge ratio. I had a quick blast of that, but didn't like the sound. And then I just decided actually the most practical thing to do, and I'm doing it anyway, is add some chromaticism into the playing that I already got. So just looking at like already existing things that I play, licks, and just adding those notes in. So there was like a little bit of issues with timing and stuff because you're adding another note in your fingers. But again, that was really fun. I was able to create exercises that were within that skill to challenge ratio that kept me engaged. And obviously, the way that was monitored in terms of immediate feedback, I was able to like put a backing track on and then try it out to see how it sounded. You know, hi Smart Alec, hi Scott. If I haven't said hello, I'm not sure if I did or not. So there's 4 of the triggers from there. I'll just keep going through them. So, is everybody following this? Is this all right? It's not too dry for you today. I mean, I think it's important. I think it's important. Environmental triggers. So, high consequences, situations where risk is involved. So you can see how this works with extreme sports athletes. I mean, their high risk is basically potential death. All right. But what high risk situations could we have as musicians and artists? What high risk situations could we put ourselves in? Well, a gig, for example, doing a live stream like this. So I know that, although I'm having to think quite a bit, I know a lot of the time on my stream, certainly when I'm making music, without a doubt. I mean, you can watch me go into flow. I'll be talking to you, and then I'll start fiddling on the computer, and then like I've ignored everybody, and then it's the end of the session. I'm like literally in flow, and then occasionally I'll come out of it just to look at the chat because I've ignored everybody, and I feel bad about it. But fundamentally, you know, I'm going into flow. I'm gone, and the consequences are there because I've got an audience holding me accountable. What if I go on there and I don't come up with anything very good, all right, or I don't come up with an idea at all? There are consequences there. I'm sure it would be all good though if that happened, and I would just brush it off and say, hey, that's what making music's life, and you know, like, and that is true. You know, we shouldn't beat ourselves up ever about doing music, but high consequences are really, really good. Really feel it in the performance situations, the live sessions with Thomas. You know, after the first track or so, when we get into it and we're playing, especially when we do challenges, like someone will say, you know, playing E flat minor, it's going to get you into flow. I mean, that's a really interesting one because it's quite thinky if you're not used to playing in that key. But the skill to challenge ratio is about there, and the consequences are high, so you get into flow. A rich environment. This is another one. A rich environments that are novel, unpredictable, and complex. So let's have a think how I've generated this. I think the rich environment that's novel, unpredictable, and complex is something that I build. I wonder if Kevin or Sean can guess how I build novel, unpredictable, and complex into my music making life. Sorry guys, I put you on the spot. Or can anybody? So it's to do with my template. Anyway, I'll let you off the hook, I'll tell you. So my rich environment is obviously, it's Ableton Live, isn't it? But that's a bit of a blunt tool, right? There's no direction to it, but it is building a template. And not so much on this template, but what I'll have is there are certain elements, right, where, in fact, there is. So on my template, I've added them in. I've got things like vocal stabs. So it's literally a sample library of just vocal stabs that I can flick through in the presets, and I'm free to run with any of those sort of things. And it's a surprise and it's unpredictable. I don't know what I'm going to use. I'm just presented with some sounds, and immediately what that gets me to think about, right, is how do I make this sound that I've landed on work with the music that exists? Very important. This is a splurge game. It's also a discovery game, and it's something you can play in any part of your creative process. Is when you're adding to a piece of music, right? You're thinking about, you know, how can I make this sound fit? Rather than flicking through presets, you know, just finding a random one and doing that. And that's how you find novel, unpredictability, and complex, because actually those vocal stabs, the nature and the way that sample library is that I use is that. I've actually got one here called Inspiration. Okay, so Inspiration, this is arcade. I'll show you that so you'll know arcade. So arcade again is, there'll be different sounds on it. Something like that. So I could use just like one sound like that to start something off. So within the template, there is that sort of random novel unpredictability built in there. The template to a level now, because I've practiced it, I suppose if you were looking at this and you didn't know what it was all about, potentially it does look quite complicated, but I can assure you, once you get going, it's not. So that's how I build it. So I tend to think of the rich environment as basically your door, okay, your template, your studio. I mean, obviously, if you could do all of this with hardware as well if you were that way inclined, and people do, and that's cool. Deep embodiment, total physical awareness and attention to multiple sensory streams. So deep embodiment, I really find this physical awareness thing good as well, especially on guitar. So there's a couple of examples I can think of. One is like in the studio, direct listening sessions is another way to sort of almost like meditation, but meditating with your music, practicing to listen to your music without judgment and actually just listening to what actually exists. Is really the start of this to directing your awareness to the music and listening on a deeper level. Okay, and it's also a great way to get rid of all the sort of random thoughts and feelings that you're having about your music, and to take in what's actually going on a subconscious level, and then hopefully the decisions that become conscious are going to be relevant to the music that you're listening to, and will be actions that we will create that are going to move your music forward. Okay, but on guitar, right, I have some tricks that I do that get me sort of in the moment, and I think if anybody here has had a guitar lesson with me, I've probably shared a few with you. So sometimes when I'm really finding it difficult to connect with the instrument, there's a few sensory things that I do. Okay, so if I walk into potentially a stressful situation like a live stream or a group of people who I've never played guitar in front of, okay, one of the things I might do is with my plectrum, I'll try and hear just the sound of the pick, the plastic hitting the strings. So this is like a direct listening thing. So I'll try and just listen for that attack and try and separate the attack of the pick, right, from the actual tone of the note. So I'm just listening to the front end attack, and that becomes like a bit of a game that I'm playing with myself. It also hyper focuses you onto that that right hand or left hand, that way, synchronization. Okay, and it stops you thinking. It stops the editor coming in and predicting to you that you're going to completely mess up, and everybody's going to hate you and think you're a bad person if you mess this up. It gets it, which isn't true under any circumstance, but that's one of the sensory things that I'll do. Another one is that I'll feel the vibrations of the string in my fingers. I really enjoy that one. So string vibrations, when you strike a note, how far can you feel a vibration going up your finger? Okay, and then that becomes a game, because then what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create equal vibrations across the fingers. So it's a really good way of hyper-focusing you on what you're meant to be doing and getting you away from and getting you, well, okay, I hate hearing the strings outside of the amp. Okay, so that's fine, Scott. I wonder why. Just out of interest, I wonder why that is why that is the case. I just need to plug my phone in because I think I'm going to run out of power here. However, that's okay, because you can go to the other thing, which is vibrations up your finger. So vibrations in your finger, really good. And then the last one, which I kind of came up with, which was to just about kind of pick a tack and feeling and trying to come up with equal dynamics. Why equal dynamics are important is it's a good base to have, I found, when I'm doing economy picking. So, and what I do is I try to feel the pick attack through the body of the guitar into my chest. And that's another thing. Oh, it's a totally different thing, right? So, physical awareness, attention to multiple sensory streams. So there's some, the guitar one's easy. In the door, there are different direct listening games. So, I'll ask people to listen to their music and focus on the space between notes. Again, that's another good one for guitar. So when I'm improvising, sometimes I'll listen in between the notes, or if I'm doing an exercise as part of observation of what's going on. So in a game of music book, a lot of it is about fixing your playing, is actually just to observe, and sometimes that's all you need to do, and then your technique writes itself. But listening between the notes and then listening to the beginning of notes helps. In fact, any sensory input is going to help you. When we think about our learning, we can triangulate our learning through listening, sight, and feel, and emotion. In fact, in terms of teaching, you have Bloom's taxonomy of learning, don't you? And I know that it's head, heart, and hands is how it works, and those are the three areas that you get taught about in education. But so any sort of sensory input will get you there, and just enjoy it. It's great. It's part of being alive, isn't it? Being able to hear, being able to see, especially being able to feel. I love that kind of the play between hearing and feeling is a great thing. And balancing that out, I mean, sometimes when we're working in our DAW, it's sight and hearing, isn't it? And sometimes we'll get obsessed with, because we'll have lots of plugins with visual stuff happening, like graphs and things like that, like Pro Q3, EQ. We can get very, very concerned with how things look and not how they sound. So that's an important thing to be thinking about. Right, are we all following this? Okay. So social triggers. So this will be more kind of group stuff. So serious concentration necessary in team environments. Shared and clear goals. So like a lot of these are repeating. So the serious concentration in environments, very much similar to the DAW. Shared, cleared goals, obviously. So I don't do much group stuff. So a lot of this stuff isn't things, but I'm going to go through it anyway. Good communication, that's pretty obvious. Familiarity, equal participation and skill level. Interesting. So if I relate this to coaching groups, there isn't any differentiation between people when you're coaching. You can have a complete beginner and somebody advanced, and it makes no absolutely difference to the learning. Risk, sense of control, close listening, always say yes. Right. Okay. So that's all group stuff. So we can miss that. This is a cool one. So creative triggers. So we can relate this to guitar. Creative triggers is pattern recognition and the ability to link new ideas using existing patterns. I love this on guitar, right? And I always used to wonder, like, is it a really bad thing that, like, when I'm playing guitar, it's a visual thing and I'm not thinking about the notes? But obviously, visual is the way to go. And when I heard like Alan Holdsworth and his REH video, and everything with him is visual, So pattern recognition is great, and I get a real buzz about learning a lick and then connecting it to other parts or discovering other things, especially with this chromaticism that I'm starting to put in my playing. Is I really love finding new areas of where I can add that in. So pattern recognition is great, especially for playing, and obviously in your DAW, pattern recognition is there as well. So making diatonic little melodies and things, we can do that. And risk taking, I think risk taking is really, really good. So I mean, this is to do with like consequences as well, isn't it? As you need to take a risk. So I mean, for me, doing these talks has been a big risk for me, because I thought I would just freeze up, and because I put the risk for me was I'm not going to play any guitar, I'm not going to play any instruments. Okay, I have to sit here and I have to talk to you guys for the full length of the session. All right, so that's a minimum of what, an hour 15, and I've got to stay roughly on the topic. Okay, and that's just something I make myself do because I just want to get even more comfortable sitting here and presenting things. It's more entertaining for you. I think it's another skill that needs developing, even though, we've got the AI invasion. So I want to be as human as I possibly can. And I think talking to people, communicating people, is just extra dynamics added to this broadcast. And it is a broadcast because Des says it was a broadcast. Where is Des these days anyway? Des, are you there? All right, maybe not. So yes, taking risks is obviously, it's that, and that skill to challenge ratio. So all these things connect, and just get you to be a focus, productivity ninja. And I just right. So incorporating these triggers into your activities can enhance your performance, creativity, innovation, learning, memory, and overall happiness. So that's, it's an amazing thing being in flow, and it's got to be what I do. I mean, being in flow, it's got to have kept me well. I did all my, like when we had COVID, I was like, basically, I was on the front line. I was working with people who were positive, right? And at the time, early on, I remember the hysteria going on in the hospital. I remember like just everybody was really, really scared because we just didn't know. And watching the news very early on, remember like in, was it Italy? There was a lot of deaths happening there. Oh God, like this is like killing a lot of people. And basically we were like, well, our job is going to be facing this, isn't it? And I think, being able to do music took me away from those. The consequences were there, but music helped me just stay completely focused and in the moment, and it stopped me from thinking about what was happening in the past, what had happened, and what the possible futures could be. So music got me through, a really, really hard time. And in fact, I can also relate that experience to being in flow and having a challenge. There's that book I keep mentioning. I never know the author's name, The Art of Learning, and I'm sure it's in that one where he talks about, or maybe it's the Happiness Advantage. It's one of those books, right? And they talk about some people who, I think it was the Spanish Civil War, ended up in a concentration camp, and the conditions were harsh. But the way they got through it is actually they played mental chess, and it became their lives just mental chess, and material things and the things and the horrible surroundings around them didn't matter as much because they had this one focus. So, music is a therapeutic thing to get you through hard times, and we all know this because we all play an instrument or we create music. Music is a metaphor also for how we're feeling. It's emotional release. We can explore our thoughts and emotions as well in a positive way. Other people can hear our emotions as well, and they can come up with their own stories and how they relate to that as well. So it's an incredibly powerful thing to do. And music, if you got it, to me, having experienced that, was like the last sort of like real difficult period in my life was the COVID. Music was literally like a suit of armor. It completely protected me because I had that session every day. I had somewhere to go away from everybody else that I could be and just be myself and be well and get away from the chaos. So that was a really good thing. And I thank music for that, because the more music I do, the older I get, the more spiritual it becomes. It's not something I'm in control of. Music really is, it's this entity, it's this life form that I serve. And I know this sounds a bit wacky, but just think about it. You know, we're always discovering with music. The best ideas come from discovery. Where do ideas come from? You know, when we're improvising and it's going well, where does that come from? It is like we're not designing into this. We're asking ourselves, you're listening to the music and you're saying to yourself, what does the music want? That's not me. That's the music telling you. Cool, innit? All right. What else have I got here? So that was right. So that was who was that? That was Stephen Kotler's psychology stuff, right? And his take on flow. And then I just thought, in contrast, which is very, very similar, the other guy who's big on flow is that I can't even pronounce his name. It's Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, right? And he pioneered the concept of flow and described several conditions that typically accompany the flow state. And these conditions are, yet again, in contrast to Stephen Kotler, clear goals. So that's very similar, isn't it? Knowing what is required and what one wants to achieve. So we should always go into our sessions. I know it's nice to pick a guitar up and have a bit of a jam. That's also important. But when you're doing your practice sessions on guitar, or you're in your studio, do go in with just one simple, clear goal and try and do that. Concentration, a high degree of concentration on a limited field of attention. So again, this is why, you know, you probably notice, right, that everything that I've talked about in all of these talks in some way is related to these flow triggers. I talk about habits and I talk about environment. You know, habits is just automatically thinking and doing something, all right, without having to redesign the wheel every time you're doing it. You know, I turn up and I sit here, apart from today when I had to like fix Ecamm and everything. But usually I'm like sitting here and I can't even remember how I got here. Yet I've got a coffee in my hand and we're off. And it's because the routine's the same and it's automatic, you know. I get out of bed, I get dressed, I come round, I go in the same direction and switch all the lights on, switch the computer on, I then do a circle, I go out the door, up the stairs, make the coffee, come back, and then we're on the live. So it's, you know, everything's ergonomically worked out. And I do the same thing every morning when I have a live, you know, at least I try to. But it's all geared up for concentration, so we don't want distractions. We need to like bust the distractions. We need to get, when we're talking about our phones, we need to get the red dots off our phones. We need to not go on emails, because remember, one email costs you 25 minutes of that. We need to just say to our loved ones, if you're in a busy house, I just need to do my music session. I'm going to be gone half an hour. You know, if you unless you get up early in the morning when everybody's still in bed, which is what I kind of opted for in the end, which works out wonderfully well. Hi, Danny. What else have we got? So, high degree of concentration, loss of feelings and self-conscious, merging of action and awareness. I love this one. Right, so this is like, everybody's got to feel this one, haven't they? When you're playing, when you're improvising, is that just loss? You just become. And I get experience this when I'm writing music. When you watch me on here and I'm making a bit of music and I'm so into it, it's like I've stopped existing. I become the music, and that is such a great vibe, isn't it? It's like when you're improvising, and there are times where, yes, you're in flow, but then there are times that you can be so embodied in the experience. It's like you physically aren't there, you know? You are part of the music. That's what we want to be aiming for. That's what's just so exciting and thrilling about doing music, you know? God, I feel sorry for all the people who don't do music. Don't you? You know, we should all have this in our lives. Anyway, the loss of feeling or self-consciousness. So, yes, so I've done that one. Distorted sense of time. Once subject experience, time is altered. So this is a very, very important one because you obviously notice the timer. So I like this one, very visual. You turn it up, blue thing comes along like that. Okay. And the timing thing links in with consequences. So I may give myself a 10-minute time to come up with some sort of musical idea, and it becomes about beating the clock. So it's about coming on alive. I've got you lot as, accountability. So I've got that pressure. I'm setting up an event within an event, basically. So when we're talking about habits being brittle, but you can back a habit up with an event and a performance, all right, or a deadline. Basically, I'm bringing together powerfully deadline and like the performance thing together, the event together within an event, and that really gets you absolutely focused. So I use time. Okay, to create time. So I've got 10 minutes, but because when you're in flow, that time, and if you haven't experienced this or been aware of it till now, that time multiplies. That 10 minutes, I can get like an hour's worth of work done, 2 hours work, and that is possible. So when we talk about, oh no, I need all day to produce a track, you don't. You need to be in flow. You need to be in flow, and you need to experience how much time, how you can expand time. Because time is just about our awareness, isn't it? Time can either drag if you're bored and you're disengaged, or time can be speeded up if you're engaged into something. So our perception of time, what we do, can change. And when we're in flow, although we experience time going very, very quickly because we're hyper-focused, we do more. So time has given us more. It's interesting, isn't it? As Scott says, interesting. So a distorted sense of time, and that's how I know I am in flow. Because sometimes, you know, if you're in such a land, right, you can't be aware of if you're in flow. I don't go, oh, I'm in flow. It's just, it happens. And then really, like when I come out of it, I think, whoa, look at the clock. Like 2 hours has gone by. Actually, it's never 2. It's about an hour and a half is my maximum time before I come out of it. When I come out of it, it's like the time just went, and I don't know where it went, but I've got all this wonderful stuff that I've been doing. So it's very magical being in flow. It's like the flow pixies come and do all the music for me. So to get into flow, we can use flow as a trigger to get into flow. In other words, we can set a timer and we can try and beat the clock. Direct and immediate feedback, knowing how well one is doing in the activity. So that, again, that's a very, very similar thing, and it become addictive. And certainly, you know, when we're actually writing a piece of music, we can see the parts coming together, can't we? We can see the screen filling up, and we can hear what is going on. When we're practicing, we can feel our playing physically smoothing out. So we do get that sense of immediate feedback. And again, it's got Chicks and Me How has got the balance between ability level and challenge. That's again skill to challenge ratio. We've got to make sure we have that dialed in. 4 to 7% outside of our comfort zone, so not a lot. So just remember that. Don't push yourself too hard, or you feel bad, disconnect, and then you don't want to do what it is that you were doing. So it's important to get that right. If it's too easy, then it's just, you're not going to want to do it. You'll get bored. You want to get excited about a challenge, don't you? And a sense of personal control over the situation or activity, a feeling of mastery. And that's what we're all going for. We just want to be great at what we're doing, and that's the goal, isn't it? We're not going for perfection. Perfection is like just a one-off thing, isn't it? It's like you're building this thing, but nothing can be perfect. For something to be perfect, everybody in the whole world's going to have to agree to that. But mastery is more of a personal thing. It's going for our personal best. It's working towards the idea of perfection, but accepting that every time we do something, it's just another diary entry. It's another step on the journey, of which we don't necessarily know which direction we're going in. It's not a straight line. And what we do and how we do it changes through external factors as well, through how society changes. You know, as artists, we reflect on that. So obviously that affects how we perform in the studio and in our performances and in our playing. The activity is intrinsically rewarding. There is an internal motivation to perform the activity. And I do find these lives really rewarding because they're instant. And I love the fact that I've done them. And I love the fact that actually you can definitely see an improvement. And I've left all of them up pretty much. So if you go to my first, God help me, if you go to my first live, which was I need to go live for the sake of it because it was the fear thing, it was about exposure, wasn't it? So you can watch the first lives where I'm in my pajamas. I mean, obviously, like what I'm doing is the same, but it's just not the same. It's like now we are into a fully developed bit of a set, you know, but it's actually my real studio space. None of this is fake, as you know. It all gets used. They're not propped. But you know, the development of what it was to what it is now, and my perception of it, because there are times even when I started getting this together, I thought, oh, that looks really good. But actually, you know, everything improves, doesn't it, over time, and how our tastes change as well. From pajamas to Road Warrior. That's my album, innit? All right. What was I talking about? A sense of personal control over the situation, a feeling of mastery. It's a wonderful thing. And it is great when you've done stuff and you've had a good session or you've finished something, you've completed your goals, is just to look back and think, oh, I did that. I feel really good about that session. I can really feel things moving forward, you know. And that just gets you more and more addicted to what you're doing. And you want to do more of it. You know, I'm always, these talks now, I'm excited to get back in and talk to everybody. You know, it's great. And I'm glad you put up with me. It's brilliant. So, you know, I appreciate everybody coming on here and listening. It's great. And then the last one is absorption, being completely absorbed into the activity, often referred to as in the zone. There we go, in the zone. So if you think about it, it's quite difficult just to be in the zone when you're not in the zone. So this is another thing, is I don't understand I have to be in the zone. Like, how do you be in the zone so that makes you have a decision to then go and make music? It's like being struck by lightning. You know, one thing we do, right, is you don't wait to be in the zone. The zone will come, right? But you have to do the work. You have to sit down and you have to do the thing, and you have to trust that ideas will be rewarded to you and you will be in the zone. So we don't wait for being in the zone. The zone will come to you. That's the thing. That's the main difference. And the only way to doing that is to do the thing. And create the conditions to be in the zone round you. get your environment sorted out, get habits dialed in, sort a template out. These are all things that I've talked about, right? All these things that I've talked about to now are all about being able to get into that zone and being a high performance music making, playing machine. I'm not saying I'm that, but it's something that I'm working towards, and I certainly feel the benefits of all of these things, which I've been practicing now since 2014. Not all at once, so staggered out. Right, so we can have a chat now. All right, so Zed, let's have a look. There's a quote: "Inspiration is for amateurs. All the best ideas come out of the work itself." That sounds like a Stephen Pressfield quote, doesn't it? From The War of Art. But yes, that's it. The difference between amateur and professional. Well, a professional is somebody's paying you, or you're running a business, and you're not going to, if you're running a business, right, and you're feeding your family, you're not going to go, "Oh man, I'm not in the zone. I'll just give it a miss." You're just not. You're going to drag yourself to whatever it is you're going to be doing, and you'll do it. And sure enough, whatever happens, you get in the zone. You get rewarded with those ideas, but you do have to drag yourself there. And it's all. I've never ever had a time where it's been like not worth doing. I've always got something out of it. Always got an insight. There's always been a win. And this is why doing your WOPs, the wins, problems, and WPOs, wins, problems, and opportunities, is important. We always start with a win after a session, because you can come away from a session and you think, "Oh God, that was horrible." But we do also know that what we're thinking in the time is completely unreliable as artists, because it's so subjective. We're dealing with fixing problems all the time, so we're just problem focused. So it's great to just reflect after a session and go, "Hold on a minute, like, what were the wins?" And no matter how bad a situation is, there's always a win to be had, even if it's just turning up. But to be fair, there's always more than just turning up for a win. And obviously, you can always get excited about problems. I live for problems. Creativity is a method of operating. Creativity, by definition, is problem solving. So by solving problems and hitting problems head first, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, aren't I? I am solving problems. So I improve as an artist. That's what I'm doing, aren't I? What's economy picking? Economy picking is a solution, isn't it? To what? A problem. What's sweet picking? It's a solution to what? A problem. What's tapping? Well, tapping's another solution to a problem, isn't it? I need more fingers, or use your other hand. And tapping is like just one of those things. It's like, bloody hell. Why wasn't this invented at the very beginning of guitar? It's like so obvious, isn't it? But maybe if people who were playing guitar did more wins, problems, and opportunities, we might have had tapping earlier. I used to wait for inspiration to make anything, but sometimes I waited years for it. Since I've been using the machine and working on music every day, the inspiration happens more often, you see. So that's the thing, because there's a system there. And that's great. So thank you for that, Zed. There you go. And the thing is that it's not even needed anymore. And that's because you're in a routine, because it's in your head. The system is in your head. It's like instinct, isn't it? So you're starting and you're finishing, and you know exactly what you're doing. And you've also got a system using the machine where, you're working on multiple ideas, and you can track exactly where they are in the creative process. Like, so if you didn't use the machine for anything else, you know where a piece of music is in terms of its position in terms of the creative journey. Okay, so if you're in a drafting, you've got 3 pieces in drafting, you can decide, I fancy doing some drafting today. If you're not feeling, oh, I don't know, I fancy starting anything new today, I fancy doing some drafting work on, you can do that. If you want to discover, because you've got some ideas that you're really excited about, you can do that. You can go straight into your discovery sessions. If you're feeling the burn of finishing something, you can go and do a release session. And you can do multiple sessions in a day, working on different areas of creativity, exercising different creative muscles. This is the advantage of doing this system. And then you get to a point where really, like the games and how you think yourself out of these situations, it's kind of baked into you. So that's really good. And Zed Arcadia is a prolific producer. So it's worth going to hear his stuff because it's really good. And there's lots of it. All right. Any questions from anybody? Because I've been through quite a lot. Has anybody had any sort of any of their own insights? Has there been anything, not put no pressure? Has there been anything that's jumped out to anybody that's really resonated? Any big sort of takeaways from today's discussion? If not, it's cool. You can be quiet. I'm not testing you. Otherwise, I'll enjoy my coffee. All right, so who was it that said before they've got their pen and paper? Because you're going to need it on Thursday. So, Nalon, I brought my pen and paper. Give me something to write on. That's David Lee Roth, isn't it? Well, actually, Nalon, you're going to need a pen and paper if you're turning up on Thursday. Because Thursday, and I'm hoping like everybody will turn up but it won't be tumbleweeds, is I am going to take you through a free writing exercise. Now, it's a free writing exercise. It will only take 15 minutes in total with a bit of waffle. So we're talking 20 minutes, half an hour of the session. And what we're going to do, it's going to be a free write, and it's all going to be about your music careers. So whatever you free write, and you don't have to share with anybody else. It's your own personal thing, and I won't be asking you anything personal about what you're writing, but it will be very enlightening for you. And we're going to free write about 3 areas, okay? One is your music. The second one is about your music business, so actually making money. And the third one is mindset. So that's basically how things rotate round, isn't it? Those 3 things. Your music, your product, your business, and your mindset. And we're going to do a 3 write on those 3 things. You'll be able to experience the power of the free write, diving into that subconscious, hopefully. It'll be timed. I'll have my timer on there. And there will be some prompts. So I'll tell you what you're going to write about. And you're just going to write as fast as you possibly can. And I'm very excited to have this sort of interactive session, which will be a bit weird because I talk all the time. So now I'm going to have to sit and be quiet for minutes on end. So that'll be weird. And try not to uncomfortably twitch about. So another challenge for me, I think, on Thursday, unless I do the free write myself. So, is everybody up for a bit of free writing? Just say yes if you are. If not, I'm going to do it anyway and just pretend that everybody's free writing. But that's Thursday morning, free writing. Music, money, mindset. That's what we're doing. And you'll find it very inspirational. And you'll find it, yes, good. Because this is going to give you a lot of insight by doing this. Okay? And it's going to get you thinking seriously about what you're doing. Instead of just crashing headfirst, grabbing guitars and strumming them and stuff like that, we're going to think about our careers, and we're going to think about how we can make absolutely everything better. Okay? So that's what I would like to do. And this is a great free write that I do with people. And I know you'll enjoy it. So there we go, interactive. So please be there. I'm going to schedule it today, and I will put in the description, bring a pen and paper. We're going to be free writing. And you'll experience what it is to be splurging, because it's the same, free writing is the same muscle as we use when we're splurging ideas. So that's cool. So that's on Thursday, and then what have I got on Friday? Oh, tell you what, I'm having such a great time doing these talks, right? It's going to be hard to get back to music, but I'll have to go back to it. So I've done flow. And then Friday, we're going to have another look at making your connections. So we will be getting my trusty mind map out of zones of experience. So we're going to have a look at making your connection, and I'll go through just again the overview of, basically where people get stuck and how they can get out of it, and what's the system of coaching to move people on. So we'll be doing zones of experience on Friday. And then we could possibly have another week of talks. I think we should probably, I'm going to try and get to the end of the month with this. So other things are, I think on the Monday, we may have a look at like objective perfection in line with David Deutsch's ideas and philosophies on why a flower is beautiful. That's going to be one of them. I've also got a little talk that I can do on craft versus art. I'm quite excited for the craft versus art because there's a lot of craftists. In fact, that's a really important one. And I think we can tie that in with AI. Because I know we're talking about AI. I know Enzo's very keen on talking about AI. So actually, I think Monday we'll do craft versus art and try and be aware of what's craft, what's going to be replaced by AI, and what is going to be left. And we can kind of come up with our own ideas of how we're going to be unique and how we're going to continue and beat the AI revolution. Although I don't think we've got as much to worry about as we think in terms of us creatives. In fact, creativity, art will be one of the last things to get wiped out. So we're all right for now. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming along this morning, and I'll see you all, not tomorrow, Thursday, for our free writing session. Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be so good. All right, then. See you Thursday.